Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your co-hosts, TV, aka TV on Basketball, alongside my co-host, Jay, aka The Knockdown. Jay, happy 100th episode, my guy.
Yeah, man, 100 episodes deep, and you can't stop us, bro. We gonna keep going. We got a playoffs upcoming. WNBA season is around the corner. Like, hey, bro, we just moving like a train that can't fall off the tracks, bro. We're cooking right now.
Bro, like you mentioned, man, the NBA playoffs around the corner. Yo, this is where we starts to pick up. We're 100 episodes into this podcast, and it's only gonna start to pick up more because of the playoffs, because of the WNBA season. Man, I just watched that Unrivaled Finals last night, and that shit was freaking flames too. Shout out to freaking Chelsea Gray and to helping her team get the win. That half court shot was nuts. If you hadn't seen it on social media, that was a crazy half court shot. But yeah. It's going to be an awesome episode. We're going to be doing a lot of reminiscing over the last 99 episodes before this. We have a few really fun segments. We're bringing back the quiz for this episode. I know it's been a minute, but we're bringing it back. By the way, Jay is like fulfilling off one of his punishments over here, wearing Toronto Raptors gear for this episode. Shout out to him. And I think that was for losing losing February. January.
That was in January, I think.
And then February, and then we're going to bring it up at the end of the episode. Jay, for the second year in a row, we're bringing back, we got the chip challenge. It's going to be a tough one for Jay today. But it's going to be a fun episode. Again, a lot of reminiscing. We're going to be bringing back the scripts. So we're going to try and fill out the rest of the script for the rest of the NBA season. It's going to be an awesome episode. And it's going to be, we're going to go through this. Because I know Jay is kind of shaking his chair right now, waiting to do that. But it's going to still be a good one. We're still going to talk some really good ball. But before we do that, we do have to plug our socials. Make sure you follow our individual socials at TV on Basketball, at the Dr. J. Those links can be found in the description down below. In terms of the Hit Your Free Throws pod, remember to follow us on TikTok and Instagram for the best daily NBA content. That's where you got the picks, you got the news, you got the series, all that stuff. Appreciate all your support. Make sure that you subscribe and leave a review if you're on any podcast network, Spotify, or Apple. And if you're on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode there. Jay, are you ready to get into this?
Yeah, bro. This is an episode we've been anticipating for a while. We got to just throw this out here one more time, man. It's not too many people recording 100 podcasts, bro. It's not too many people doing this. A lot of people that will give up early in their journey, man. I'm so glad that we've been onto this for the last, 2.5, 3 years now, man. It's been fun.
100%, man. It's been like you said, we started this in 2023, like first or second week of January, kind of chugged through. We got our ups, we got our downs. We talked a lot of great basketball, a lot of great moments, and we're going to be going through a few of them in this episode, and also trying to, have a lot of good basketball talk as well. But Jay, like I mentioned, we're going to start by looking back a little bit because we've been doing this pod for a long time now. Basically, this is the third NBA season. We picked up, our podcast like halfway through the 2022-2023 season, the season where the Nuggets won a championship. So we're going to go through, I decided we're going to post some clips, look at some of the bad, some of the good of the stuff that we talked about on the pod, and we're going to bring it up today. So, you ready to go through some of this?
Yeah, bro. I'm interested to see what clips you picked. I am completely uninformed, so I'm just as blind as the viewers. I'm hyped for this.
Yeah, we're gonna talk, of course, what we thought about it hindsight, how we were thinking about it at the time, and see kind of how things are shaping up, especially now in the current climate of the NBA. Yeah. But Jay, we're gonna start back a couple of years ago. This is the second episode of the pod, and this is the first time we did our script predictions. And Jay, even 3 to 4 months before the draft lottery, Jay saw the vision.
There's 20-something games left, and the San Antonio Spurs are towards the bottom portion of the Western Conference. And the last time that the Spurs chose to tank, they were rewarded with one of the best, most generational big men in NBA history in Tim Duncan. And so I thought history would repeat itself, and Victor Wembanyama would fall into their lap.
Yes, sir. By the way, we look hella different.
Not for real.
Honestly. But Jay, I know we were talking about already. We were talking about Wemby Mania, him, what team is he going to end up on. I know in that exact same episode, I was talking about the freaking Jazz replacing Rudy Gobert with Victor Wembanyama. But you called out the Spurs. I thought, I know they were near the bottom. I know they were tanking. But the fact, with these odds right now, you never know what really happens. And they were able to pull it off.
Yeah, man, from a generational prospect perspective, you just have to think about markets. I think one of the most interesting things about this Cooper Flag draft, for example, is that I think we're not really sure which market is truly deserving of Cooper Flag when we talk about a notoriety perspective, right? If you look at the bottom of both the West and the Eastern Conference, right? Like, name the big market that's really floating around that's like, yeah, that's going to be the team that really helps put Cooper on the map. Like, the Bulls are sitting at 9. It's going to be really hard for them to put themselves in the mix. They're going to have a really low percentage. The 76ers are pretty solid. And of course, you know, they have PG, Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, but like, are they really going to give the Sixers the first overall pick? The Hornets, kind of a middling franchise, definitely need a blue chip prospect still next to LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. The Wizards and Nets are probably the only like quote unquote big market teams out of anybody.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, because the Pelicans and Jazz are definitely not considered big market teams.
Yeah.
So the only big market squads I can think of that you would want him in from a city notoriety perspective is probably the Wizards, who are far away from where they need to be like really seen on a national level consistently, and the Hornets, who like obviously are going to be fun with LaMelo, Brandon Miller. They still have a pretty solid core with like Mark Williams when healthy and stuff like that. But like, it's a really different situation. But the San Antonio Spurs stuff with Victor Wembanyama, it's like I said in the clip, it was a match made in heaven. When was the last time that the San Antonio Spurs were picking that high in the NBA draft? The last time they did it, they got a generational center. You want to know what happened the time before that? They got a generational center. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of just one of those things that was written in the stars. And they say lightning doesn't strike twice, but for the Spurs, it already did. So a third time is basically a habit at that point.
Bro, that's crazy. But if going back to the Spurs, though, they are kind of in a mix right now for the pick as well.
True.
And if you think about the Tim Duncan year, where they got the number 1 overall pick, David Robinson goes out with a season-ending injury. You know, Wembanyama, season-ending injury. You got the Spurs purposely taking again. Does history repeat itself for a 4th time? I know it's not a big, but you might as well like consider him a big. They do need some help at that power forward spot. I think they were playing like Harrison Barnes there for most of the season. Cooper Flag on the Spurs? Is that a real possibility? I mean,
it's an interesting play. I'm not going to lie. I mean, if we're talking about most deserving teams, right, this is where it gets a little tricky. I got to take Bulls bias out of it because I have a whole thing in mind about like just reason after reason why a Cooper Flag in a Bulls jersey just seems like the perfect thing to happen. But I'm biased, obviously, right? But we're just looking at the stands. I think in order of teams that genuinely need a kind of like a Cooper Flag in the building, I think the Wizards are at the top for me. I think second is the Nets. And I think third after that, I have to go over to the Western Conference. And I think it's desperately the Jazz. Like, I think they need like a true blue chip prospect. Like, I still think that they're a team that has so many like reclamation guys or like projects. And Cooper feels like a guy that's like going to be able to come in and like off of energy, effort, and skill set alone, let alone his actual development, like in terms of seeing the game better and different things like that. He's a guy who I think can day one come in, average like 15, 8, and 7 or 15, 8, and 6, something around there, and be impactful on both sides of the floor and create a culture around that. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that I assimilate with a guy like with Cooper Flag in terms of you see the way he plays and the kind of energy he kind of exudes is he's a culture changer. There's not too many guys that get taken number 1 overall that you deem as culture changers. They might be talented, right? Yeah. But there's a difference between just being good enough to be taken at the top of the draft and being a guy who literally exudes a certain level of confidence that permeates through your organization and say like, okay, we're ready to compete now. Even if it's not necessarily for like a championship, it's like we're ready to play for something meaningful now. Yeah. Cooper is one of those kind of prospects, the same way Victor was for the San Antonio Spurs. And we've already seen some of the moves they've been willing to make. They went after Chris Paul from a developmental standpoint in terms of being able to build up guys like the Stephon Castles of the world. They go after a De'Aaron Fox. They bring in a Harrison Barnes in the offseason. They already make these small adjustments that's like, okay, we want to start developing a team that's ready to kind of make a postseason push. And had Victor not went down with injury, I think the other dominoes that fell in terms of like, you know, obviously Pop's situation as well, stirring up in terms of him going out with his own version of an injury. Yeah. Everybody and their mama knew that once De'Aaron Fox was out for what's going to be a pinky surgery, that they were kind of, you know, folding up the season. Yeah. I think everything changes if Victor's still healthy. So, you know, that just goes to tell you that they're a team that looks like they're, you know, ready to kind of make a leap, and they're maybe 1 or 2 more prospects away from like really committing to it. And I think, a team like Utah is in a different perspective where they need that guy to start to really jumpstart the rest. I think the same thing can be said for Brooklyn. I think they have plenty of veteran talents, but they do not have the guy that you build the roster around yet. Cooper can be one of them dudes, and I think Brooklyn, if you want to rival the Knicks, one of the best ways to do it is to get yourself a number 1 overall pick that brings his lunch pail every single day, and that is Cooper Flag.
Yeah, 100%. I do like the Brooklyn Nets fit. I do think that, like, more than likely it would be nice to have, a spread of talent around the league. So in terms of, like, Cooper Flag being put into, like, again, you said the Jazz, you said the Wizards. These guys are needing that number 1 dude.
Yeah.
And having in there would be great. But you could also see the case where, you put them on the Charlotte Hornets. They already got LaMelo. They got Brandon Miller going. They could just, if they end up getting Cooper Flag, they could just kind of start to accelerate the process and maybe do some moves to actually get this team a little bit more, formidable, like you saw with the Detroit Pistons from the previous year. Yeah. You could see a team like, again, the Spurs. They're basically already almost made. If they had Cooper Flag, oh my goodness, this team's about to become scary out there in the West. But there's a couple teams like that. There's definitely a lot of scenarios where Cooper Flag. I mean, you talk about the Raptors being like near competitive without even trying. Imagine adding Cooper Flag with the situation, adding a healthy Brandon Ingram. That could be really interesting. So there's definitely a lot of routes that can go, lead Cooper Flag to already immediate success, but also he would be a great starting point for a lot of the teams that are very much starting over.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the next clip though, and in this next clip. This is where we talk about the Bradley Beal trade, and this one got pretty interesting. Look, I'm giving this an A. Chris Paul is a goner. You have Bradley Beal as your third option. Really, if you just really thinking about it, KD, Devin Booker, and now Bradley Beal is your third option. It's great. Does this address any of their issues? Hell no. Nothing has been solved. Defense, nothing has been solved. But it's better than having Chris Paul at the moment. Just get a better version that can produce, not someone who is a shell of his former self, someone who could not stay healthy at the end of the playoff run. Bradley Beal is going to be on the floor. He's going to give you still 20 to 25 points per game, even as a third option. He is still someone who is only 30 years old. He is in his prime. Now it's paying $50 million, something that you want to do. Like 4 years from now, especially because apparently the no trade clause is still a thing on his contract. So even if he's like on the Phoenix Suns, he gets to choose where he has to go. That's going to be a problem. But at the end of the day, you traded someone who you're going to let go anyways into a perennial all-star. Yeah. Oh boy, I was really trying to big up that one. Look, in my defense, I mean, like, if you remember that playoff series where Chris Paul kind of crashed out there. Yeah. Horrible playoff series. They ended the season pretty badly. So I was like, you know what? Getting someone who was just coming off a 30-point per game season, all that should be good, right? All the stuff I was talking about Chris Paul is happening right now with Bradley Beal. A shell of his former self. This man cannot stay healthy for the life of him. And that no trade clause that we were talking about, Jay, 2 years ago, oh, it's looking real bad right now for the Phoenix Suns. They're even put in a deeper hole. And even like the stuff I was talking about, the problems that they had back then, the depth, the problems that they have with their defense. Jay, it's been 2 years. They still have not fixed that. So the Phoenix Suns, this experiment of trying to get these three guys together has not shaped out very well, and they're still one game behind the Mavs for the play-in tournament. It's been a really rough 2 years for the Suns team.
Yeah, man, it's a snowball effect that started with the Kevin Durant trade of just kind of going all in, and you see what Mikal Bridges has been able to do with the New York Knicks. You still see how Cam Johnson has been able to really blossom in his role with Brooklyn, and then You even look at what they did in terms of exchanging dang near a 1-for-1 with Nurkic for DeAndre Ayton, right? And you kind of run that whole scenario back, and then you include now moving on from Chris Paul, who's I think isn't he a year away from being expiring at this point after the re-signing with San Antonio?
Yeah.
Instead of having that more serviceable contract on your books, you now have Bradley Beal, who is easily the hardest contract to move in a way that's probably more difficult than ones that we've seen in the past. You have to remember, once upon a time, we saw John Wall for Russell Westbrook, and they were both considered two of the worst contracts in the league. You saw a Russell Westbrook for Chris Paul, right? And they were two of the worst contracts in the league at the time. TV, we're in a league right now where there's not too many bad contracts just sitting around, and Bradley Beal is like the gleaming, North Star of the NBA in terms of guys that you're just like, oof. Yeah. When you check the books, you're like, ooh, QuickBooks ain't gonna save you for this one, buddy. Like, ain't no way we gonna be able to budget around you, bro. We just gonna have to watch this one crash and burn, and Phoenix is really having to pay for it in the mode of now having to really consider looking at a Devin Booker, looking at a Kevin Durant this summer and saying like, yo, do we have to move off of these guys to even like become maybe flexible, like even potentially flexible?
Yes.
That's tough.
Bro, over these last few years, we've just talked to I think a big talking point of this podcast in general is that the Suns just don't care about flexibility. They're using everything at their disposal in terms of draft picks, pick swaps, anything they can to make sure that they're able to compete now. And where has that got them? The 11th seed in the Western Conference at the very moment. And you talked about the Bradley Beal contract as being one of the worst, as like basically being the worst in the league, and by a wide margin. Jay, there's a reason why people don't get freaking no trade clauses, because you're stuck in these type of situations. Why would you keep on a clause which has the player control whether you can move off of them or not? This is why free agency is the thing. As an organization, you knew the risk going into it, and I think I talked about in that clip there. They knew the risk going into it, but with the lack of success that they've had over these last 2 years, and the fact that they are at risk of not even making the postseason, man, this Phoenix Suns team, it's been like a generational crash about how bad this team has been.
I think the real question, TV, actually is because you gave a grade in that clip there. I mean, is it just like automatically an F with everything knowing what you've seen with Chris Paul when it comes to what he's done with San Antonio, knowing what you've seen with Bradley Beal, given the contract situation across the board? Like, is it just blatantly an F now? Or are you like still kind of giving it some room, given the fact that you weren't wrong about Chris Paul declining? He's been a little bit better at San Antonio, but in a much more reduced role than the one he was asked for with the Phoenix Suns, for example. Or when it came to Bradley Beal, it hasn't necessarily been that he can't be effective. It's just, it goes back to what we said even when he was signed. There still is only one ball, and you have three guys who operate best when the ball's in their hands. It's the reason why I was banging the table this past summer like, yo, Tyus Jones, bruh. I know he's not one of those names that like everybody clamors for, but he's a guy Monte Morris, they're like that archetype of like control the pace, put themselves in a position where they can just really do what they need to do and help those players kind of stay organized in a way that they can all be, viable at what they do best. But it just hasn't been enough, despite the fact that Bradley, I don't think the talent has diminished. I think the fit just hasn't been as seamless as we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, no, we thought that these three guys, these are three hoopers, would just figure out, like, we just see these three guys, like, on a court together, and we're like, oh, this is going to be, like, an easy, like, top 5 offense in the league with KD, Book, and Bradley Beal. And when that's not the case, and they haven't really addressed the issues, I mean, they've done everything. They've tried fixing the coach. They've made every trade possible to try and make this team better, but it's clearly not working. And you got to point to these top 3 guys and say, it's just not working. And I think, like, looking back now, you asked a while ago, like, how do I see this, like, trade, like, now knowing the hindsight of these last 2 years? I guess a D, just because it's not completely over yet. Like, there's still some sort of room for this to be salvageable. Mm-hmm. But from the outside looking in, man, this Phoenix Suns team, like, tried to take a 2010 strategy of trying to build these super teams, and with the whole new CBA and everything, and trying to incorporate that in 2025, it just seems like it's just not going to work. And this is a blueprint for other teams moving forward, saying, look, this is how things used to work. They thought that this is going to work. This doesn't work anymore. Look at the top teams in the league, the Thunder, building through the draft, getting all those role players, being very smart with the contracts. I mean, they signed Isaiah Hartenstein to a 3-year deal when all of their top players are on rookie deals. Great business. You look at the Cavs. You look at all these homegrown teams. These are the teams that dominate the league right now. And you see teams like the Suns just completely fall down the pecking order.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, too, is not necessarily just that it's a dinosaur tactic, but it's one that's not very flexible once you're stuck in it. right?
Yeah.
It's not just that it's ineffective in terms of its actual productivity on the floor, because at the end of the day, when you become a top-heavy team, we saw this with the Lakers a handful of times, when you become a top-heavy team, it does hurt your flexibility in terms of your play style, but it also hurts your flexibility in terms of getting better once you realize that it doesn't work. Like your ability to get out of it and reposition yourself to then maybe return to some level of prominence that maybe makes more sense for your roster construction, right? Because now you're in a situation where like you have to legitimately look at like a Devin Booker or a Kevin Durant, two of your top guys that you make all of these moves with in mind, and you're like, maybe they're our only route out of this hole, but they're also the main reason why you made the decision to step into this hole knowingly as well. I think the toughest thing too for the Phoenix Suns is they're in the tough predicament of being the team that's top heavy with no draft capital. That's a dangerous spot to be in.
That's a death sentence here.
Yeah, you've essentially pigeonholed yourself minimum till 2028, maximum probably somewhere around 2030, where unless you are willing to just let it go, you are in for a tough ride. And I hate saying that for Phoenix, because up until a few years ago, they had been on one hell of a roller coaster as it was. So
they made the finals once and thought they were freaking invincible, man.
Yeah.
They thought that everything they could touch turns to gold. I guess not. I mean, we freaking like, applauded Matt Ishbia when he first got in as into this team. It was like, wow, they're actually making big time moves. They're not staying. They're not settling for all this. And now it's freaking bit them in the butt, which is tough. Jay, in this next clip, we're not done talking about the Suns, because the series versus the Wolves last year, we had our concerns. I was gonna say, this is the worst matchup in the first round you can get.
They squandered it. I was talking about them all season as if they finish as the number 1 seed, they're going to be pushing themselves in the right direction. This is not the series Minnesota wanted to see in the first round with the kind of year that they've had. They've definitely played at a really high level, and they really, with all the bullshit around the finances, are they selling the team? Are they not selling the team? Well, they're not selling the team, but and then their financial circumstances with Karl Anthony Towns' big payout and Rudy Gobert and Anthony Edwards, and then they re-upped on Mike Conley, right? All these things. They just really needed to at least get out the first round. So I'm gonna pass it over to you, but I'm gonna end by saying my actual pick, which is, man, I got Phoenix in 6 games, dude.
Oh, yikes.
Bro, we were on like Phoenix, just remember, we have to remember the context around the situation. The Phoenix Suns have dominated the Timberwolves for like the last 2 years, like prior to that. This is a matchup where you're like, Anthony Edwards doesn't show up against the Phoenix Suns. And going into the series, we're like, man, this is like a 56-win team, probably one of the best seasons in Timberwolves history, and it's going to be squandered by Kevin Durant and all them. Jay, literally the exact opposite happened. They swept them.
Yeah, this was not one of my better takes. And again, like TV said, given context, we weren't the only ones on this bandwagon either. The Suns were starting to pick it up going into the postseason. We had seen the record. I believe they were like 4-0 in their last 4 games facing off against the Timberwolves at that time. Yeah. It was a position where you sat there and you looked at it, and you're looking at the Phoenix Suns, you're looking at Kevin Durant playing at a high level. You're also paying attention to the context around the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mentioned it in there. That was their last hurrah. And it truly ended up being that. Karl Anthony Towns is a New York Knick now.
Yeah.
The context all said, this is all built to burn. They're going to go into the postseason after having a great last push of the regular season. They're going to go up against the Phoenix Suns. It's going to go up in flames, no pun intended. And it's going to put them in a position where they have to truly reevaluate themselves and say, dang, are we good enough to be paying this much money for this roster? And don't get me wrong, they ended up significantly outperforming that. They did end up still having to evaluate whether or not they believed their roster was enough to put that kind of bread out. And the answer was no. And we see now they've been able to pick up steam with Julius Randle as an asset now. They've been on a real heater over the last, 14 games or so. I have a pretty solid record, 6-4 in their last 10 games. And they've been 8-2 in their last 10 games, and have been really, really solid with Julius Randle when he's been healthy. The big thing was that we saw that situation as like, a last gasp effort that we thought was going to blow up in their face because everything was aligning to be that last ditch effort that didn't work out, right?
Yeah.
And for the most part, it still played out that way. It's just the Phoenix Suns had to catch that whooping first, unfortunately. So,
Yeah.
you know?
I've never seen a narrative flip so quickly between a matchup with the Phoenix Suns and the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah.
Because like you mentioned, KD was playing at like a top 5 level going into the playoffs. Devin Booker was having a fantastic year. I know they had injuries here and there, but they were able to get out of the playing situation, which they were stuck in for like the longest time during that season.
Yeah.
And they made it to the 6th seed, and they're like, man, the one team the Timberwolves don't want to play, even if you look at the 4 or 5, because remember, at the end of last season, they were in that 3-way tie-ish situation with the Denver Nuggets, with the Oklahoma City Thunder. So a lot could change. There was a lot of maneuvering on that final day. So they kind of got the worst case scenario, but at the same time, they provided themselves with a character team-defining moment and beating those demons in the freaking Phoenix Suns. And not just beating them. Like you said, they put an absolute whooping on them, man. Like, it was like something where every single game, even though we knew that the Timberwolves were dominating, you just couldn't take your eyes off the screen because we never saw the Phoenix Suns faltering like this. We never thought that like a KD, Devin Booker-led team would falter like this. Especially with how dominant they've been again the last 2 years against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I had to look back in that episode, and I was talking how that season alone, in the 4 games that they played against each other, Anthony Edwards was averaging like 14 points a game. So it was tough for everyone, but that was the moment where the MJ comparison started coming back into the form for Anthony Edwards. And we were like, man, this Timberwolves team is like one of the best defensive teams in the league. And Jay, they made it all the way to the freaking conference finals, and it looked like everything was sunshine and rainbows. But the stuff that we talked about, them blowing it up, like you said, it still happened. It still freaking happened. And I'm glad that they're finally doing this now. But I do want to ask you this question before we move on to the next clip.
Mm-hmm.
Do the Timberwolves have another chance to make a run here? I know that they're kind of, we talked we weren't able to talk about them last week because they were just right outside the playoff teams. But do you think that the Timberwolves have that run in them now that they started to finally figure out how to incorporate Julius Randle in their roster?
So I think they have a really interesting chance because they've been playing so much better over the last couple of weeks, and we know how momentum affects the ability to perform at a high level in the first round initially in the playoffs. Obviously, that momentum is case by case in terms of how it continues throughout a given postseason run. But that first round momentum is actually one of the most important things going into that going into that postseason. That and health, obviously.
Yeah.
This is going to bleed a little bit into one of my script narratives, so I'm not going to go too hard into it. But for the Timberwolves in particular, matchup is going to matter so much for them in terms of how these things align. And I think if they catch the right team, they can be dangerous. My only worry is that I think they're going to catch the wrong squad.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be an interesting run for the Timberwolves again this year. I'm just glad they're looking. I mean, it took them a while. It definitely took them a while to finally get things going, but they're right at the edge of the top 6. They're, I think, only I think they have to. They're like one game behind the Warriors or something.
Warriors, yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be definitely interesting to see how things play out. And we've seen how this team turns up in the playoffs. Anthony Edwards takes it to another level when he doesn't get gassed, and if the defense does show up and now you have a bit more shooting there with Dante DiVincenzo, you never know out in the West. Like you mentioned, it's definitely going to be matchup dependent, but should be definitely interesting to see how the Wolves, how their postseason run goes on this year. Jay, we're going to move on to the next clip, though. And Jay, this is a classic of the podcast because we thought that, the grass is greener on the other side for this one player, and sometimes that doesn't turn out to be the case. But Jay, I was holding off bigging up this guy earlier on, but I think a guy who has the potential to make a first-time All-Star, you could potentially put this on the bulletin board. Give me DeAndre Ayton. Give me DeAndre Ayton.
Whoa.
He feels more committed than ever. He said as he entered the locker room, it feels like I'm a rookie again. He feels like this is a whole new fresh start. I could see him having like a 22-12 sort of season.
Not going to be hype about, but I think has some real validity to it. the redemption factor, the fact that he is a top-level talent when you talk about his overall physique, the ability that he has as an offensive player, the upside we know he has as a defensive player, because we saw 2 seasons ago what he was capable of as a defender against Nikola Jokic. So we know that when he plays motivated, he can be one of the better defensive centers in the league.
Oh, when he feels motivated, Jay, where's the motivation?
Golly.
It's been like a year and a half now. Where is this motivated DeAndre Ayton? Now he said he was going to turn his career around.
Man, DeAndre Ayton is still loading, bro. He's still loading. It's just crazy, bro. I'm not gonna lie. I was praying that in that clip, with me putting my hands on my head and everything, I'm sitting there in disbelief. I'm like, nah, maybe I'll just respond by being like, nah, TV ain't no way. Nope. I'm over here doubling down. And man, hey, put it this way. We were so wrong that DeAndre Ayton might not even be the best center on his own team right now.
Bro, honestly.
Jeez.
Yo, I read they have 3 centers on that team, and Clingan, Ayton, and Robert Williams.
Yeah.
Give me those other 2, bro. Give me those other 2.
Fact, and Clingan might be the best one out of all of them.
Oh, already might be the best one. He's a damn good like defensive anchor for that team.
Jeez, bro. Definitely not one of our shining moments, but the offseason storylines was giving us like real hope, dog. It was there for like new scenery, low expectations. Like DeAndre Ayton felt like a very like, not the Dwight Howard type. I don't want to say that, but like he seemed like one of those types where like when the bright lights are on him, he kind of like his energy is different. But when you kind of take all of the spotlight off, he's just kind of able to just play free basketball. You thought he was just going to come out and kill. And hey, bro, Portland was literally the best layup humanly possible to give him just the highway to play as well as he could possibly muster up. And he just, I don't know. He got monstered, dude. He lost his powers.
Honestly, man, like the thing is, like the Trailblazers this year have been a pretty solid story. A team that we thought was going to be near the bottom of the conference, but they have been competing all year round. They're not going to be making the play-in or anything, but this is a team where it's not a day off when you go face them, because Chauncey Billups has this team fighting every single night. We talk about players like Toumani Camara, Anthony Simon, Shaedon Sharpe, Deni Avdija. So many guys who have shown great energy. The growth of Scoot Henderson. So many guys that are contributing to their solid season so far. And you're going to have to go to number 9 or number 10 before we even mention DeAndre Ayton on that roster. Like, it might be a situation where he might be gone again this summer. Like Portland might not want to. Like, the thing is, like, is anyone willing to take it? Like, DeAndre Ayton, like, I'm not going to say he's out the league, but there's going to be a whole different expectation from him now, especially now that we've seen him in a finals, in a contender type scenario. He kind of fell short. In a situation where he could have, redeemed himself and found like his role in the league, he still hasn't been able to figure it out. Jay, like, where does he fit now in the league?
I don't know, man. I think he's one of those now that I think is slowly going to descend into like that Clint Capella, DeAndre Jordan role of like just being dangerous as a rim running threat, and that being kind of the anchor of how he's able to like be sufficient on a night to night basis. But I think the main thing, and this is the part where I will give DA a little bit of credit, or a little bit of like grace, I guess is more so the word. I do think that he needs a more facilitate heavy point guard. I think he's still
foreign guards there in freaking Portland.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the things where I thought maybe the pick and roll operation between him and Scoot Henderson would actually benefit Scoot more, because DeAndre Ayton has been able to thrive in a 2-man game with a smaller point guard who operates, more at the top third of the half court as opposed to like more so around the rim. But no, Scoot Henderson has been, much more aggressive as a driver this season, not relying on his mid-range nearly as much as he was in his rookie season. And that's kind of changed things up when you also pair in a Shaedon Sharpe, who is more of a mid-range to three-point shooter type. And you look at Anthony Simons, who doesn't really operate too heavily in a traditional pick and roll set as often. He is more isolation heavy. You can tell
Yes,
you can tell he's an understudy of like the Damian Lillard, CJ McCollums of the world as an offensive engine, right? So DA, you could tell that like the reason why he kind of thrived so much in Phoenix was more so because of raw ability paired with somebody who understood how to maximize said raw talent. And we know if there's anybody who knows how to play next to raw talent at the big man position, it's Chris Paul. Chris Paul's played with Clint Capella, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan. Like you go down the list of players that he's surrounded himself around, and he knows how to maximize raw athleticism. I don't think that anybody with Portland has that same skill set, and true. DA has kind of now niched down to kind of just being that style of guy, which means he needs a Chris Paul type in order for him to really be effective, which makes me think, if I had to think about teams where DA could be effective, right? Let's go down the list of teams that I think would be really interesting for somebody like DeAndre Ayton. Could buy low for the Lakers next to Luka Doncic and LeBron James. That could be interesting. Could a situation where you pair him back with Chris Paul in San Antonio, and where Victor Wembanyama has the ability to either play the 4 or DA can come off the bench and take on second units at the 5. I think the other one, and a lot of people have kind of speculated around the stuff with Miles Turner, I think Miles is there to stay, but their center depth is still struggling. The Indiana Pacers next to Tyrese Halliburton. Very interesting circumstance. And then the last one, I think, is another guy, who was actually in the draft class with DA at the time, playing next to a facilitating guard like a Trae Young. Those are the 4 spaces where I think if you can go on some like buy low, I think Charlotte too, to a certain extent. That one's an interesting one because the real question there is just, can Charles Lee bring out the defensive side of DA the way like he has been able to do with some of the other prospects on their team?
Yeah.
Those are like 4 to 5 teams I think DA could be really interesting on, but he would definitely be a buy low pickup. He would. I mean, he's definitely not at the apex of what his trade value would have been once upon a time.
100%. And you got to remember too, which is really helpful for his value, is that next year he's an expiring contract. So that's really nice for people to really buy low on. You mentioned the Atlanta Hawks. I like that as a potential opportunity. I don't know how the Golden State Warriors can make it on the books, but potentially getting a more solidified center on a 1-year deal. Who knows what can come about if you have Steph Curry, Dre, and Jimmy Butler beside you. Some of the other teams, again, a lot of the teams are kind of set at the center position, which is really tough. But I feel like you mentioned, there's a place for DeAndre Ayton's skill set in the NBA. Now, is it going to reach the number one potential, number one pick potential that we've had? I think we could kind of throw it out the window, but he could still have a good 12 to 14-year career. It's just kind of have to see how things shape out. It's just unfortunate that, one, he kind of fell out of place on that Phoenix Suns team, and 2, all of the guards that he's playing here with the Portland Trail Blazers have an eye towards the rim first before actually going to their big men. But yeah, I mean, hopefully he can find a new place. But man, we were super high on him when he first got to Portland. It was rough looking.
Yeah, not the best situation.
Yeah, for sure.
For what we thought was going to be a really open opportunity for a guy to kind of reestablish himself in the league after a year or two stretch that made us really wonder, who he was going to be long term. And I think we still question it. I think we have a decent understanding of the archetype he fits in, but if that's the apex of the guy he is, what does that career round out to be,
Exactly, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, there's a peak with DeAndre Ayton, and that means that he can't really be not even your 1 to 3 option on a playoff or a contending team, which is really unfortunate for a former first overall pick, but he could still have a long career. He just kind of has to understand what his role is and improve on doing the little things, which hopefully he can learn that throughout his career. Jay, we've had a couple bad ones here recently. Let's end off on a good one. We're going to the season, and if there's one team we were right on, it was the Philadelphia 76ers. For myself, though, the team that I might lock in to be most disappointed in, and I feel like it's already starting, man, the 76ers. the 76ers.
Yeah, similar reasons, I
Similar.
presume. Similar
Yeah.
reasons.
For sure. I feel like, I mean, you talked about this in the last episode. I feel like this is the most ideal looking 76er team, like the best like looking 76er team that we've seen in the Joel Embiid era. You brought in
Yeah.
Paul George, you have Tyrese Maxey, you've covered all three, wing guard center positions. You have a bench now, you have a great coach. Everything seems to be looking up. But the problem is that your two stars are guys that have constantly not been there for their team when they needed it the most.
I think we're gonna go this entire season not having a real beat on who the real version of the 76ers are. I really believe that we're gonna get to the end of the season feeling like the 76ers build is just another one of those hypothetical super teams that we never got to really understand the full capacity of.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
a team that we don't know who they are at the end of the season. Jay, we have no clue. Like, dude, I think we said this kind of with the idea of like, you know what? Maybe some guy's gonna miss a game here and there. Oh, Joel Embiid, and like he said, he doesn't want to play back-to-backs. Maybe like he only plays like 40 to 50 games. Jay, we have no clue what this team looks like at all. I think it's like this is even worse than we projected. Like even like preseason.
I mean, look, bro. Obviously, you can't project the injuries being to this level. Of course not, right?
Of course you can. Yeah.
But I think the theory was still there that understood that something like this was potentially on the horizon. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Joel Embiid, injury-prone superstar. Paul George, injury-prone superstar. Tyrese Maxey, at the time, before Jared McCain's initial breakout, we kind of saw him as the only real lead initiating guard for their team that felt like he could create his own offense kind of in spite of whether Joel was on the court or not, right? And then you look at the depth situation. I like Kelly Oubre, right? I'm a fan of what he can do. Still struggles as a three-point shooter. Jared McCain, we didn't know who he was going to be coming into the season.
Yes.
And ended up actually being arguably their most effective option for a short spurt of time, which is not really the kind of like way you want to go into a season where your three best players are all guys that would be considered TV. Am I wrong for bluntly saying those all three of those guys probably are considered as top 30, top 35 coming into the year?
Well, no, for sure. No,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
So I don't think that you expect a Jared McCain I think a lot of people didn't think Jared McCain was going to play, right?
Honestly,
Considering this roster, right? I think Kyle Lowry still being on this team. I believe they had Caleb Martin at the time, who was also a solid pickup, who was supposed to play the 4 for them. Like there were so many different variety options at the wing spots on the perimeter for them to be able to like kind of be interchangeable, where we didn't even think Jared McCain was really going to play, and we thought he was just going to kill it in the G League. No, he ended up being dang near their best player for a good, month and a half stretch.
Yeah.
So I think the writing was correctly on the wall, and pats on the back for us for still being willing to not get so caught up in the fact that same episode, we both acknowledged that the Philadelphia 76ers had one of the best off seasons of any team.
That's the thing too, yeah.
You know what I mean? They had one. If we're talking about pen to paper, who just made the best out of their cap situation? Philly did the best cap gymnastics out of anybody we saw all summer long.
Yeah.
But the puzzle pieces still come with a couple of cracks, and we know how that goes. Just because they fit doesn't mean the picture's going to look pretty at the end. And that's kind of how Philly's first season is played out. And now they have a bunch of questions. Who is Joel Embiid moving forward as a guy who clearly can't play back-to-backs anymore? Paul George admits to us once again that you have to worry about his injury concerns, because right after he gives you a season where he plays 65 to 70 plus games, now you're wondering about whether or not he can stay on the floor again. Tyrese Maxey, a guy who now, I'm not going to say has built up an injury history, but now a guy that we do have to draw some real concern for, especially given the fact that like the rest of their backcourt situation is not really fully fleshed out now, right? And that's not even including the fact that people are looking for Nick Nurse's head, and I don't even know if it's his fault.
You can't control the players on the court, man. You really can't. And Nick Nurse does have his faults, whether it's overly like putting the minutes on like the starters. I mean, Tyrese Maxey, like I think over if you look over the last 3 years, was definitely like near the top of the league in terms of minutes per game. Is that a lot to do with Nick Nurse? Yes, because even as me as a Toronto Raptor fan, seeing him in his final few seasons here, this man like ran his starters to the ground. You're talking about Tom Thibodeau. This is like a lighter version of Tom Thibodeau in that sense, and I was already surprised that he was trusting Jared McCain with a lot of the action that he was getting. So Nick Nurse definitely has his faults. But like you mentioned, could we have envisioned a scenario where Joel Embiid's about to go into another surgery with a potential chance that the 76ers want to medically retire him and nullify his contract, which he just got in September? What's going to happen with Paul George being this like mid-30s superstar, now having a 4-year deal? We were talking about the worst contract in the league. Oh boy, Paul George is about to be that real quick in the next year or two. This 76er team, like you said, like they made the right choices. And for the team that they have right now, they really did their best to try and maximize the prime of Joel Embiid. But the thing is, it's like you have all of these top guys, but they all have the same problem in the sense where when you need to be on the court, they're not there for you when you really need it the most. And now they're in a freaking tanking battle with the bottom 8 teams in the league. They're putting on some of the worst basketball this entire season. It's a tough situation to kind of maneuver yourself out of. I think it's going to become more. It's at least they have draft picks. They still have some young talent, and the Jared McCain revelation has been great. But in terms of trying to create a championship window with Maxey and Embiid, and trying to add Paul George in that situation, those two guys, and Embiid and Paul George, they determine a lot of that future. And as of right now, they might not even see too much further into it with the way that the 76ers might want to go about this team going forward.
It's a tough position, man. I feel bad for Philly fans from this perspective. I mean, obviously, hey, you guys are coming off of a Super Bowl in the football world. So, I mean, hey, I only got but so much sympathy for y'all. But at the same time, from a basketball perspective, man, I mean, hey, dude, somebody has to do a study on whether or not the Philadelphia 76ers are more cursed than the Clippers. There's some real stuff going on when it comes to those two franchises in terms of just having some pretty tough luck. And it just seems like every single time one of them seems to catch steam, something happens that just sets them back a year or two, where you just have to ask yourself, dang, if we saw this team the way we thought we were going to always be able to envision them, just how crazy could they have been? And this was one of those years, dude. I'm going to be honest with you. Don't get me wrong. Cleveland, Boston, I think the Bucks are still in the mix. The Knicks are still solid, but this was a good year where if their big three was good with the roster they had around them, this was a good squad to be running out in the postseason for Philly to maybe actually, make a deep run. This was a good bracket to maybe run into.
Yeah, no, 100%. We said it in that episode. It's a perfect looking on paper roster. Everything sort of fits. It's just that like we said with the Pelicans, like we said with the Clippers over these last few years, we're never gonna know until it's too late. And if they do end up, figuring this stuff out next season or potentially the season after, depending on if Joel Embiid wants surgery or not, it's gonna be past the point where we get the best version of all these guys. And we were hoping to get the best version of all these guys going into this year. But we sadly might not be able to see that at all either. So it's very tough for 76er fans. Maybe they'll look out in the draft and maybe be able to pivot in a completely new direction. But as of right now, they're in probably one of the worst situations in the NBA right now. But at least they got, at least you're not the Suns and you don't have all your picks anymore. At least you have a potential chance in the future going forward.
True.
Let us know what you guys think down below of all of these takes. If you want to react to these takes, our thoughts on the current situation of these teams and players, let us know down below. Jay, it is that time of the year, and we do this every year. This is becoming a yearly tradition with the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, and it's time for us to write the NBA script. We are 15 games left in the season. The playoffs start in about a month. And we're going to try and figure out how the rest of the season is going to play out. We usually do these outlandish script writing scenarios and to see how things go. We're going to try and do it this year. We have a couple here for you. We might do 2 or 3. We'll see how it goes. Jay, as a script writer,
yeah,
what's one situation you see playing out this year?
So, TV, as the script writer, one of the biggest things that I always focus on when you talk about the rest of this season, because again, we don't focus on the off season, potential big trades that we might have to watch out for. We don't do any of that stuff because at the end of the day, right, it's one of those things where the furthest we might go is like up to the draft lottery, just given when it's placed, right? But for the most part, when we're talking about the rest of the regular season, obviously the end all be all of it is what our framework around the postseason is, right? So, TV, for you today, I have quite literally predicted and associated a storyline with the entire Western Conference first round bracket.
Goodness gracious. Okay, let's get into it.
And it's not too in-depth. It's just very straightforward. But I do think that this layout in a year where everybody was worried about TV ratings and whether or not, the NBA was interesting, even in spite of the crazy trade deadline that we had. No. No, the trade deadline was only the beginning, fellas. And the Western Conference is going to be the representation of that. My prediction for the Western Conference Final 8 is going to be in this order. The Oklahoma City Thunder will be the 1 seed. The Denver Nuggets will be the 2. The Los Angeles Lakers will survive, hold on, and be the 3. The Grizzlies will bump up to 4. The Rockets will drop all the way down to 5. The Warriors will stay around 6. The Timberwolves will be at 7. And the Clippers will be at 8. Now, fellas, if you were paying attention to the way I lined that up, there's some pretty interesting things sitting in the middle of that bracket there.
Jay, you're doing this for the rating.
And I'm doing it to cook, TV. Let me go down the different storylines just in the Western Conference for you. This is going to be one of those that really carries. Everybody knows that at the end of the day, ESPN loves them some West Coast basketball. Let's be honest. Let's just tell the truth. Let's just lead into it at this point, right? So the Thunder take on the LA Clippers. You know what the LA Clippers' significance is to a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder? Oh, yeah. They only traded potentially the best player in the league this year in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And for those who are wondering, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander averages almost 30 points a game when he plays against the Clippers. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
He has a certain infatuation with playing the LA Clippers, and not for the reasons you'd hope. It's not because of sunshine and palm trees out there. It's because he's got a bone to pick with a couple of guys. The Denver Nuggets taking on the Timberwolves. If we remember, one of the biggest upsets we saw last season, indeed, was the Timberwolves taking out the Phoenix Suns. But more surprisingly was the way that the Timberwolves handled the Nuggets the next round after.
Yeah.
And I think that the Nuggets want their get back. But then, you got to be able to line it up. You got to make it look good.
I do it.
Braun, Steph, Luka, Jimmy Buckets. TV, Lakers, Warriors, first round. It's a California classic. I can see the graphics now, TV. It's built in.
I could see the ESPN headlines for every single day.
Stephen A. Smith will be at every single game of that series. It's the series he never got to see between the Lakers and Miami Heat in 2020. It's a series he never got to see of all palm trees all series long. And then the last one, Grizzlies Rockets. The Young Bucks run into each other, and we got to see which rebuild is further along in the journey. I'm just saying, TV, the West is going to end up carrying this postseason. We already know that. The ratings alone are going to tell us that the Lakers making the postseason by itself is going to mean a lot to the way that the NBA is viewed over the next month and a half. But I mean, if the Lakers take on Steph Curry and them kids over there, you got two teams that's they got two versions of their last legs going. LeBron maybe has 1 or 2 more years left. I know he looks like a superhero right now, but we know it's coming down the pipeline. And we know that the Steph Curry-led Warriors also are only built, if you remember, look at their contract construction. Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler with his extension. Only about 2 more years left to this. So it's not too many more opportunities we're going to see of this kind of California matchup. And this might be one of their best last shots where they're also fighting at the peak of their powers. I think that the West has themselves a pretty good bracket with my setup, and I think that David Stern from up above also likes what he sees.
Man, those storylines going into it, that could be one of the most hyped first rounds.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie, bro. The second round after that is gonna be like watching commercials, dog, compared to the first round. Like the first round is gonna carry.
What's it called? Adam Silver is emptying out his freaking clip. trying to save these ratings.
Yo.
Okay. I'm gonna try to imagine. I do like that. Any chance for me to see a freaking Steph versus LeBron playoff series one last time? I mean, we saw it last year when I think it was like the Lakers versus Warriors, and I think the Lakers were able to pull it out. Like, it would be nice to get that again as well. That would be super cool. I think it happened like 2 years ago, right? I think that was like 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
So having one more of those, that could be nice, especially with Luka Doncic and Jimmy Butler involved. Jay. I'm gonna stick in the Western Conference here because I do have a script for a certain team. And we talk about the last dance. Jay, this is the Warriors' last dance. This is their last dance to go here. So let me paint this picture for you. We got the Warriors. I think they stay in the 6th seed. Their first round matchup is the team that eliminated them from the play-in a couple years back. The Memphis Grizzlies, Ja Morant, and that young team go up against the old Golden State Warriors. But Steph, Dre, Jimmy, when it comes to the playoffs, they hit another level. They go out, they take down the Grizzlies in 6. Round 2, I think the Lakers get the 2nd seed here. Jay, I also think we get a Steph versus LeBron matchup once again. But this time in the second round, you got the two teams that made the biggest deals at the trade deadline going head to head. Who comes out on top? The Warriors have a little bit of life in them, and they make it to the conference finals. But Jay, they go up against the juggernaut, the team that they had to overcome in the conference finals in 2016, the Oklahoma City Thunder. But it's a completely different scenario now. You had to get KD. You had to face KD, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. You got a team here with SGA. Throw out a bunch of young guys. But unfortunately, the series ends there, and the Golden State Warriors fall to the Oklahoma City Thunder. We're gonna have some things come out at the end of the season that they had some freaking documentary people like following the Golden State Warriors throughout the year, and you're gonna see the behind the scenes in a couple of years of them trying to overcome this mountain, trying to go through each of this series, trying to get to the finals one last time. But unfortunately, this is not the 2016 Thunder, man. There's a team that has been together for years, a team that has been building, has been cooking up. And unfortunately, the old Warriors, even though they got that juice for trying to go for one last year, for the last 2 years, the Thunder eliminate them, and they move on to the NBA Finals. But they won't finals run.
Hey, man, I mean, predicting the Warriors to go on a run is not the craziest thing in the world to see. And I think at the end of the day, I think of all the teams that made a real move at the trade deadline, I think it's inarguable that they made the riskiest swing out of anybody. I mean, obviously, the Mavericks pretty much sold their jobs away by giving Luka up. So that doesn't count. But in terms of making a risky move that like genuinely moves the needle, I think the Warriors like blatantly, like unequivocally made like that move that's like, yo, if this doesn't work, we're kind of cooked for a minute. So them going on a run as a part of it, it's very similar to our conversation about the Minnesota Timberwolves last year of just like, yo, the whole deck stacked against you. The whole situation is set for you to crash and burn. This is supposed to be the postseason where if you flame out, it could cost you dearly. And so playing like your life depends on it, just like the Minnesota Timberwolves proved a lot of people wrong for 2 straight, series, just to, again, get handled in the conference finals, kind of like how you played it out for the Warriors. Very similar situation of like, yo, you only got but so many of these type of seasons left, and this might be one of your best chances to kind of preserve it, because the next 2 years, they don't get easier.
100%. And I think that more than anything, like, we talk about motivation's a big thing. With the Timberwolves last year, like we mentioned, they basically thought this could be the last year just because they don't even know if the freaking team can afford it anymore. The Warriors did everything in their power this trade deadline to give them one last start, to give them one last chance at trying to get to the finals. I think they're gonna give it a great shot. I think I know they did lose yesterday to the Denver Nuggets without Jokic, but at the same time they've had such a good run with Jimmy Butler as of late. I do think that they're gonna I think in my script I do think they're gonna have a big run, but unlike the 2016 playoffs where they were able to come down 3-1 against the Oklahoma City Thunder, I think this Thunder team is just too well built. And almost 10 years later, they get their look back, but in a completely different way.
Hey man, it's always fun to watch the Warriors. So seeing them playing at the apex like that, where they have to really play with their hair on fire, that's a team you just fear that. You fear that type of squad, bro. And then when you add Jimmy Butler, who we know elevates his game in a real way during the postseason, they're just destined to be a real threat. And I think if we had to do like a hierarchy of who we thought were real championship contenders, I think despite the fact that I picked them to finish 6th in the Western Conference, I don't think I would put them that low in terms of championship contenders in the Western Conference. And they might be as low as 6th overall if we're gauging everybody in the postseason mix.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, we both start off with our script writing with like the Western Conference playoffs, which is definitely interesting. Jay, what do you got next?
So I had to go over to the East because we got to be fair, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sticking with the Pistons bandwagon. I told y'all before the season started that I thought the Pistons had a real chance to make the playoffs. I picked them mainly to make the play-in tournament area and maybe make some real noise in that spot where maybe if they make the postseason, they scrape in as like the 8th seed. Then a couple of weeks ago, I doubled down on my hot take and said, you know what? No. I think they're a lock for the 6th seed. And if you look at the standings, fellas, it looks like they're a lock for the 6th seed with a chance to actually move up the totem pole because the Bucks and Pacers are within striking distance. And I'm going to tell you this right now. I think that by hook or crook, I think the Pistons probably will end up still kind of slotting at 6. I think they're going to take on the New York Knicks. And I think the Pistons push it all the way to 6 games. And I think they really make these New York Knicks sweat. I don't fear the Knicks at all. And you know who else doesn't? Cade Cunningham and the Detroit Pistons, who are playing some of their better basketball towards this last end stretch. Things have been a little bit dicey. One of the better teams on at home, one of the better road records. One of the better home records in the league this year, and a team that I think could be really interesting as a middle-of-the-pack squad that has nothing to lose. I'm going to take the Detroit Pistons to face off against the New York Knicks and make MSG sweat. And even with them losing, I think Cade Cunningham's going to ball out so hard that he ends up being considered for first team all-conference in the first round. I think he's going to be a first-team all-NBA first round kind of player where we're like in terms of first round matchups for the NBA playoffs, he might be like top 10, top 15 guys that hooped. And he's going to really put the Pistons in a position to be like, yo, we're really cooking with something.
You're basically just giving MSG a new villain. Like you want him to move on for freaking Trae Young and be like, you know what? We're not going to face Trae Young now. Now we got to deal with Cade Cunningham now.
Hey,
bro. I like that. I like this. I like a scenario, and you never know. I mean, Jalen Brunson out until late, early April. You don't know how far this is gonna go into the playoffs. This New York Knicks team is not safe whatsoever. Mikal Bridges has talked about freaking wanting less minutes to get himself more ready for the playoffs, just for the starters in general. So like I said, the Pistons. I mean, you talked about it last week. The Pistons have nothing to lose. They're going in there with house money. They already had a successful season, man. And if Cade Cunningham could find his footing in the playoffs and be that true playoff performer and put a scare to the Knicks, that would be interesting. That would definitely be interesting. I like that. Hilariously enough, Jade, I have an East playoff one too. I'm going to go with the East playoff one. I was going to go with this other one, but I'm going to go with the East playoff one.
Well,
Jay, I'm gonna take this out to the number one, the 2-7 matchup, because I do think the 2-7 matchup is going to be the Orlando Magic versus the Boston Celtics.
Okay.
And in this matchup, yes, the Orlando Magic are struggling, especially on the offensive end. Yes, the Boston Celtics have been kind of coasting, and they're trying to get like the number 2 seed. Jay, I think the Orlando Magic are going to wake them up. In this matchup, Jay, I have the Magic pushing this series surprisingly to 7 games.
Oh, wow.
In the script, I think that Paolo Banchero is finally finding his footing over the last month or so. He's been averaging 38 and 6 throughout this last month. Franz Wagner finally getting healthy. We've seen what these two guys can play at their highest level earlier on this year. They both have been all-star caliber players, and when those guys are cooking, I think that this is going to be a really tough. It's going to be a nice, back and forth duo versus duo. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum versus these two. But Jay, the secret weapon that's gonna pose problems for the Celtics all series long, Goga Batadze. Goga Batadze is going to have one of those random playoff moments. He's gonna be like giving the freaking there's Wendell Carter. I know he's starting. I know there's no Mo Wagner, but Goga Batadze has been one of the better backup centers over the last couple of years. I think that this his style is gonna prove to be very difficult for a Kristaps Porzingis, and then obviously off the bench you got the Al Horfords and Neemias Quetas, Luke Cornetts. I think they're just gonna have problems with him all series. He's gonna be averaging like 14 and 10 or so, and he's just gonna be like one of those random role players in the playoffs that just has like some crazy round. I think that this Magic team out of nowhere will push the Celtics to 7 games and wake them up and say, "Oh no. This East that we thought was going to be easy, it's not as easy as we thought." But I do think the Celtics are going to pull it out in a probably dominant Game 7, but I do think that the Magic, in my script, kind of shock a lot of teams. It's a lot of play.
I'm not going to lie. If that was the way that the Magic really, truly recovered this season, I would be proud of them for that. As like an avid Magic supporter on this podcast that's kind of bigged up them since last season, I mean, I would be totally for seeing a more competitive series, given the fact that, TV, we said it earlier on in the year, if this team was healthy all season long, this was definitely a top 4 seed, waiting to happen.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this is one of those situations where I think that if they can come out and be competitive, if there's any team I trust defensively against Boston, especially in the first round of any of the teams that's in striking distance to face Boston, I trust them more than Atlanta. I trust them more than Detroit, even with how good Detroit has been defensively. I definitely trust them more than the Bulls. I trust them more than the Heat. Any of the teams that would be in striking distance to take on Boston in a first round scenario, I don't think even hold a candle to what the Orlando Magic can do. Now, the Jalen Suggs element and him not being available, that makes it a little tough. Because I think if he were there, it would really, I would almost be more in support of where you're coming from. Because I don't think he's going to play, which I think it's more than confirmed at this point. That's the part where, and even if he does play coming off of injury, that's going to be difficult. So that's the one part where I worry. Goga Batadze and their center rotation could be an interesting X factor. But I think the biggest thing is Franz, dude. Last season, he was very hit or miss on a game-to-game basis in the postseason. Remember, we talked about this when we were covering the games. I covered the Orlando series against the Cleveland Cavaliers last year, and I remember saying time after time, I'm like, dude, Paolo seems like he's hooping out there by himself right now. And it's Franz had a game, Jalen eventually had a game, but it was just one of those things where it's he's he needs someone else. And that was against Cleveland, who, obviously high-level defense, wasn't shooting the 3-ball very well. Hey, Cleveland shot the 3-ball at a high clip last year, but they ain't doing nothing like what Boston's doing this year. You know what I mean? What they did last year, 3-point shooting percentage-wise, ain't nothing in terms of the volume or definitely not the hit rate that what Boston is doing this year. So my fear is that, they're in a really tough position with that one. So, hey, man, I'm looking forward to what goes on with the Orlando Magic, but I just wish they were healthier.
No, 100%. This team was supposed to be one of those teams where you could see a path for them, especially early on in the season, that they could do a surprise conference finals run, especially with how well they ended the season last year, taking the Cavaliers to 7 games. How great Paolo and Franz were in the early parts of this year. They had the tools there. It's just the offense has fallen off so badly since the injuries. They've lost like a part of their center rotation, Mo Wagner. Now Jalen Suggs is out. Even like the people they brought in, like KCP, has been like surprisingly like not that great this year. So I just think that there's gonna be like a heartbeat in that, in that like Orlando Magic team, kind of like how the Pelicans took the Suns like that one year to 6 or 8 to 7 games, like out of nowhere. I think that we could get that sort of at least series from the Magic and have to wake up the Celtics to the point where you're like, okay, they are contenders, but this is a series to kind of wake them up to see like in terms of the playoff intensity. So let's see if that's going to work out. Let us know what you guys think down below. Who, if you have any wild like predictions for the script or anything, let us know, and also or react to any of ours that we just put out there. Jay, reaching near the end of the episode, we decided to bring back a fan favorite series, which we had a fun time with over the like a few episodes throughout this series, and it's the NBA quiz. We haven't done this in a while, but we decided to bring back the quiz for the special 100th episode. And Jay, it's one of the more fun quizzes. We are doing Guess the Player. And if you remember how this goes, Jay, as I give you the like 5 different teams this guy has played for, and each one is gonna get easier as time goes on, but you're gonna have to take a guess after each time. I'm gonna give you maybe about 3 players or so, and let's see if you still are kind of in that mode, because we've seen you like get some like pretty big Hail Marys throughout the series, but let's see if you still have that quiz boat in you.
All right, bet.
So the theme for this one, Jay, it's a theme called like the streets won't forget these. Like the streets won't forget these players. So I'm gonna give you a couple of teams, and let's see if you can be able to get these. So first guy here. The first team we have here is the Orlando Magic.
Okay, so just to confirm, current players, past players, combination of any. The streets won't forget is an interesting.
Streets won't forget is kind of like, I'll say over the last 10 to 15 years. So it could be current, it could be a thing.
Okay. And is the first team is the most affiliated team, or is just a team that we're throwing out?
Least affiliated.
Least affiliated. Okay, interesting. The streets won't forget. Because my first answer was going to be Aaron Aflalo.
Not Aaron Aflalo, but I will give you the next team though.
Okay.
The Washington Wizards.
Washington Wizards. Orlando Magic. Washington Wizards. Oh, man. That feels like KCP.
KCP, no, but I do. All right, next one. The New York Knicks. New York Knicks.
Huh. The Knicks, the Wizards, and the Orlando Magic? The Knicks is throwing me off.
I will say for this player that like these like 3 teams are kind of like he had a quick cup of coffee at these teams. The last 2 teams, like he's played like at least like a couple years at each.
Okay. Oh man.
Definitely a player who, people would say back in the day would potentially have gone next, but we'll see. I mean, I might have given away too much. I don't think I give away too much, but I think definitely someone who had a bunch of potential.
Oh, we thought had next too? Okay, interesting. Dang. I'm trying to think of like now the one that's throwing me off is the Wizards, because I felt like I had like a name, but like I just not.
I will say he ended his career on the Wizards, I think. Yeah, he ended his career on the Wizards.
Ended his career on the Wizards? Ooh, okay. That's a little tough.
Yeah. You want the next team?
Yeah, give me the next team.
The Detroit Pistons.
Oh, dang it. That like
Detroit Pistons.
Rip Hamilton?
Not Rip Hamilton. He did play for the Wizards. He did. You know what? He did play for a couple of these teams. So I think.
Yeah, bro. Come on, man. Come on. I'm here.
Okay. I'll give you the last team though. This is his most notable team, the Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh man. What? The Bucks?
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
This man came into the league guns a blazing.
Oh my
This
God!
guy.
What kind of hop around? This is.
What were you gonna say?
Cause I don't know if he played for the Wizards. That's the only part.
What?
Everything else sounds okay. What you said? Orlando Magic. You
Wizards.
said Bucks. You said Wizards. See,
Knicks and Pistons.
Knicks and Pist. Oh my gosh, dude, I don't.
Who are you gonna say? Who are you
I was gonna say Brandon Jennings.
It is
But
Jennings.
oh, let's go.
You
Come
did it.
on. Talk to me, nice. Oh my gosh, bro.
Good.
Let's go. The Wizards threw me off, dog. I swear, I see my man's in the Knicks jersey. I know the Bucks won. Orlando, I know the cup of coffee situation. Yo, the Wizards threw me off. Yo, come on, bro.
Yo,
Yes, episode 100. Come talk to me, bro.
I was gonna say my man still got him. My man still got that.
Come
But
on,
yeah,
man.
let's see. Let's see how this goes. Okay, I'm gonna give you maybe 1 or 2 more players. Let's see how this goes.
Okay.
All right. Next team. First guy, the Milwaukee Bucks.
All right. Okay. Milwaukee Bucks. Let's go with my dog, Monte Ellis.
No, not Monte Ellis.
Okay.
We'll move on to the next one. The Utah Jazz.
Utah.
Utah. He.
Wow. The name I have and the name that I think you have are nowhere close.
What?
I already know that.
What were you saying?
2K11 legend John Salmons, man. Come on, man. He's the 2K11 legend, bro.
Yo, shout out to freaking John Salmons, former Raptor.
Come on,
This guy-
man. Bull as well,
yeah,
man.
it's
Definitely
not-
wrong answer.
Yeah. If you want to get in, you want to get the next team?
Yeah. give me
Let's
next team,
see.
next team.
The Philadelphia 76ers.
Philly, Utah. Who else? Philly,
Milwaukee.
Utah,
Milwaukee was the
Milwaukee.
first team. We're the first team. I will say, I think the 76ers drafted him. The 76ers drafted him, I will say. As a little bit of a guess.
Not in the league anymore?
Not in the league anymore, I will say, for this guy.
The person I thought of was Nerlens Noel.
Not Nerlens Noel. I'll go with this team. I don't know if this is going to trigger anything, but
Okay.
Chicago Bulls.
Ooh, come on, man. Oh. See,
Chicago Bulls.
once you say he played in a Bulls uniform, I feel inclined. Okay, read the teams off for me one more time.
So we got the Bucks first, Jazz, 76ers, Bulls.
It's telling me what position he plays like too much.
Might be.
Okay,
I will give it
all
to
right.
you. But after the last team, I will give it to you if you need it.
Okay, cool. Okay, Bucks, Jazz, Sixers, Bulls. Bucks, Jazz, Sixers, Bulls.
I think
Bucks,
he had a pretty
Jazz,
decent run with the Bulls. Not gonna lie.
Bulls.
I
Oh my goodness! Is this Michael Carter Williams?
not Michael Carter Williams, but he played for 3 of those teams. I just
Come on, bro! I'm trying to tell you, I'm here, bro. I'm here. Come on, I'm here. Come
Okay.
on.
all right. This one should give it away. The Atlanta Hawks.
Atlanta? Ooh, wait a minute.
The Atlanta Hawks.
Oh wow! I don't know if this helped or hurt. Atlanta?
Most notable team, the Atlanta Hawks.
Most notable team. Name the teams again.
We got the
Like
Bucks, the Jazz, the 76ers, the Bulls, and the Hawks.
Oh man, I feel like I was on to something, and then the Hawks popped up. Who am I thinking of?
Man had a freaking this man became a freaking cult hero on the Atlanta Hawks.
Old hero. Oh
Like-
man.
This man made the Hawks must watch TV, at least for a little bit.
You mean a must-watch TV? Okay, that's definitely not whoever I thought it was.
In the
Goodness
sense where
gracious.
this guy would just go on absolute heaters at a time, and people would just they have I think the Hawks had a thing where they just had a camera kind of follow him to see where he was gonna it was a crazy time, and I think that this guy like made a surprise All-Star appearance.
Oh man, dude, name the teams one more time. Sorry, audience. This is me really trying to lock in on this pool.
Yeah. Bucks, Jazz, 76ers, Bulls, Hawks.
Dude, it's like the pool is there, but like then it's not. Made them exciting to watch for a short period of time.
I will say he has a
surprise.
Huh? Yeah. This guy has a Hall of Fame like attribute where it's like he's like one of the best of all time at one specific thing.
Whoa. Okay.
This guy, this guy made a surprise All-Star appearance. You definitely don't think of him as like an All-Star, but like he like snuck in one year.
Dang, dude, there's only two dudes that I can even remotely think of, and I don't think exciting when I think of either one of them though.
I might have like maybe over like shot with exciting, but I know like that he made them like this Hawks team like very like one of the most talked about teams in terms of like one of the more exciting guys on the team, which I will say a lot of the personalities on this Hawks team was definitely like not the most fun to watch, but
one of the teams is the Sixers.
Yes.
Because my answer is Kyle Korver.
It is Kyle Korver.
Okay, see, come on, bro. Like, bro, come on, bro.
Yeah, it's Kyle Korver.
Come on.
It is.
Come on.
Like, let's be honest. With that Hawks team, Jeff T.
I understand what you're saying now. When you say exciting, like that team was like they were like 5 out before 5 out was like from a ball handling standpoint, they were kind of like different. Paul Millsap was on that team. They were kind of like real rugged in that spot. Taurean Prince shot the absolute lace off the ball for like a year. Like I know what you mean now that I got the guess. I was trying to put the teams together. Utah is the one. That's the one that threw me off.
Yeah, freaking.
Okay. Because full transparency, I'm glad I went with Kyle Korver first. Because my backup answer, and it would have been wrong because Utah kept throwing me off, was Kirk Heinrich.
Yeah,
that was my backup answer.
Okay,
but I'm glad I went with Kyle.
Yeah,
come on, man. I'm here, bro. I'm here.
Okay. I'll give you one last guy here before we move on. I'm gonna also hit you with some rapid fire questions before we go into your little chip thing. I'm gonna hit you with some rapid fire questions. So, we're gonna go here with this guy. And we're going to go with the San Antonio Spurs.
Huh. Okie dokie. Let me think of somebody who might have had a cup of coffee with the Spurs. It's kind of hilarious, but like T-Mac?
Not T-Mac. All right. Next one.
It's easy to forget. It is easy to forget that he was on the roster.
Forget. All right. Next team, the Sacramento Kings.
Ooh, interesting. Not the two teams I would think to come back to back. Huh. The Sacramento Kings and the San Antonio Spurs?
Yes.
Dang.
Yeah.
This is a never forget type too. Okay. Is he more recent in any way, or this is definitely like a pull from deep?
I won't say anything.
Okay. All right, fair. Kevin Martin.
Not Kevin Martin. He did play for both those teams, though. You're correct.
Yeah. Okay,
all right, next team, though.
Y'all see me? Come on now. I need podcast listeners to catch up, man. I'm here.
The Toronto Raptors.
Who the hell is this?
There's.
Oh my! Who is this? Who is this dog? Oh my goodness! This is how you know I watch too much basketball, because I'll niche down and say stupid stuff like John Salmons as a guess and actually like say use it as a guess. And like now I'm in another one of those like there's no way this is the name, but I'm like just thinking of dudes.
Yeah. You're gonna laugh at the end of like when you realize who this player is.
Okay, name the three teams again for me real quick.
Spurs, Kings, Raps.
Spurs, Kings, Raps. Is it DeMar?
Oh, damn it. I thought I was going to
Yeah, the GOAT, the podcast GOAT.
I was going to do the podcast go to end it off. I was going to throw you off a little bit because you're like, why on earth would I do DeMar DeRozan?
Bro. Okay, for what it's worth, I'm so glad I guessed that because I was about to say Ed Davis, dude. I told you I was about to go stupid niche for no reason, bro. I was thinking like Ed Davis, Antonio McDyess. I don't know where I was at, bro.
Nah, that's crazy.
I don't know where I was at.
Yo, if I said USC, would you have been like, what the heck? If I said USC?
I'm not gonna lie, that would have probably sold it. I would have for sure had to guess DeMar, and if I was wrong, I just had to be wrong, bro.
I was gonna say,
like at that point, it's like, geez, bro, what else am I supposed to do?
Yeah, no, I thought I was gonna throw you off there with the DeMar DeRozan, but
hey, yo.
yeah, but yeah, that's good. Brought back the quiz. We're gonna
sir.
We'll definitely do we'll definitely bring back just like the quiz in terms of just like stuff on YouTube if you want to check that out. Even like bring it back for the TikToks eventually. But
yeah.
I want to bring it back. At least we ended off the quiz on the freaking podcast go, DeMar DeRozan. Jay, we're gonna end the episode pretty soon, but we did want to make a point to kind of like for us to get to know us. So at the end of this episode, I did want to like use this as a time to kind of showcase like what got us into like liking basketball, kind of like the stuff that we grew up with. So Jay, I'm gonna just rapid fire you just 4 questions, just to kind of give you a bit more about yourself to the viewers and everything. So I'll answer the questions too as we go along. So number 1, your favorite player of all time.
Favorite player of all time is Derrick Rose. It's not even close. I mean, it's not even close.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like as a Derrick Rose fan, as a Chicago guy, for sure, Derrick Rose is definitely going to be there for you. For myself, we just talked about him, but freaking DeMar DeRozan, my favorite player of all time. Like, you ought to remember as a Toronto Raptor fan, we don't get a lot of guys just coming in and wanting to stay with us. DeMar DeRozan felt like that guy who wanted to be with us and I know we kind of did him dirty. But he wanted to be a Toronto Raptor. He did all he could. Unfortunately, he couldn't reach the mountaintop. Really would have liked him to be on that championship team, but shout out to him. He is still my favorite player of all time. Jay, the player that got you into loving basketball. So this doesn't have to be just even from your team or anything, but just a guy who like got you into loving basketball.
Wow, so that's a little bit more interesting. The player that got me into like truly loving basketball, I think when I really started paying attention to basketball on that level, it was around that like 05, 06 time frame with Miami, with like the way Dwayne Wade was playing. And I even have like a very, very small miniature version of like the Shaquille O'Neal Miami Heat jersey at the time. I guess Dwayne Wade, it's weird to say that as a kid that grew up in Georgia initially. But obviously, the Atlanta Hawks weren't like always on nothing. And like, Dominique Wilkins is kind of like before my time from like a viewership standpoint. Dwayne Wade was like one of my favorite guards ever up until like this newer generation kind of really like opened the floodgates for me. So I guess Dwayne Wade and that Miami Heat team around 06, man, that was like when I think I started watching basketball where it seemed like intentional. I was born in 98. So, the first couple of years of like, Jordan Bulls and stuff like that. I'm a Bulls fan, but trust me, it's tried and true. It's not all Chicago Bulls winning championships. I've been through Aaron Brooks, Mike Dunleavy Jr. Like I've been through the rain when it comes to that stuff. But I guess a Chicago guy in a sense in Dwayne Wade, I think that's the first time I was like, yo, this dude's different.
No, 100%. That's definitely a good one, especially during that time. Dwayne Wade was, I think, like in MVP conversations as well, coming off that Finals MVP with the Heat. Great choice over there. For myself, you got to remember, like, you guys don't remember, obviously, but I mean, like, I was a taller kid when I first started really liking basketball. I was taller than a lot of kids like my age, even at 7, 8 years old. But what I really like to do is just focus on my jump shot, focus on free throws for some reason. I just love shooting the basketball. And the guy that really, like, influenced that, man, Dirk Nowitzki. Dirk Nowitzki was my guy growing up. I was trying to like imitate that one-legged fadeaway like all the time. Winning the championship was probably like my favorite that's not the Toronto Raptors, but that's like my favorite championship of all time. Seeing Dirk finally reach the mountaintop and doing it against the freaking Miami Heat of all teams, like it was like one of the biggest core memories of me growing up, being a 2000s kid. So Dirk Nowitzki, his play style was so unlike every other big man in the league, and he kind of started this new age of the stretch bigs. He could you could really point to him as that guy to really usher in a new era of basketball. He was a freaking unicorn back then. He deserves the love here, so I'm gonna give it to Dirk Nowitzki. Jay, next question for you. Your most hated player.
Most hated player. Oh man. Most hated player. That's so different because I usually am not that type, but oh man, who is just like a dude that just like really kills me? This is gonna be such a cop out, but I like just have to be bluntly honest, and this is just from a Bulls fan perspective, dude. Getting past the big three Miami Heat was like the most annoying stretch of basketball fandom I've ever had in my life. Like, I remember where I was at when I saw the LeBron James decision, which is a crazy thing to have as a core memory. LeBron James being like the biggest like roadblock for the Chicago Bulls for a 3-year stretch where I thought like we were really like one of them ones.
Yeah.
Dude. I mean, for my favorite player to be Derrick Rose and to know that guy was being LeBron James was the reason why we didn't get to see D Rose play in an NBA Finals, dude.
Yeah. No,
I know that's such a cop-out answer, but for a person who doesn't really like hate too many players, yo, Braun cock-blocking the Bulls, and mind you, he was supposed to be a Chicago Bull that summer too. That's a whole separate storyline by itself.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, jeez, bro.
It was
jeez.
Bro, I mean, like, you and me, like, man, like, you like, in the early 2010s, it was the freaking Miami Heat for you guys. It was a freaking Cleveland Cavaliers freaking cock-blocking the Raptors every single chance possible. It was tough. But the funny thing is, Jay, that's not even my least favorite player of all time. I've learned to appreciate LeBron's, like, greatness at some point, especially in later in my life.
Fair.
Dude, there's not many players I hate, but if there's one guy I will always have, like, a detest for, is freaking Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce, growing up, man. The first time the Raptors made the playoffs in like 5 years, we faced the Brooklyn Nets. This man freaking stuffed Kyle Lowry with his freaking head to freaking close out the series. And then afterwards, out of nowhere, the freaking Washington Wizards with freaking Paul Pierce, Bradley Beal, and John Wall swept the Toronto Raptors after Lou Williams won Sixth Man of the Year with us, and he hit that freaking game winner, banking it.
Oh yeah.
You know that freaking famous quote where he's like, "I didn't call bank, I called game." That's what freaking originated that, bro. Every time I saw Paul Pierce's face, it just freaking gave me the ick growing up. Even on TV, it's making it worse because I can't stand this man's takes. But ever since that, especially like knowing like the era of the Raptors where, you know, there was the LeBron stuff going on, but the early playoff years, freaking Paul Pierce out of all guys, and it's not even freaking prime Paul Pierce either. It's freaking old man Paul Pierce was a freaking thorn on the side for the Toronto Raptors. I was freaking annoyed by that. Jay, final question: your favorite version of your team growing up? So like your favorite like era of your team.
I mean, my favorite era of my team is 2011 to 2013, man. I mean, that's just like, that's the apex of like what in my generation of Chicago Bulls basketball, that's where like we were just at our best. Joakim Noah was a DPOY candidate on a regular basis, even won one in the process. Derrick Rose, MVP caliber. Everybody forgets how good Luol Deng was. He was so good that at one point, Kobe Bryant wanted to play on the same team as Luol Deng. I know I make fun of Carlos Boozer, calling him Boozer the loser on the podcast and stuff like that, but mainly because of his very, very erratically slow jump shot on 2K11. But the dude was a bucket for us. Kirk Heinrich was there for that time frame. Like, we just had a very interesting and like well-rounded squad. Taj Gibson, you know, I mentioned John Salmons earlier in the podcast. Like, we just had a really interesting stretch of basketball, like where we were, I'm not going to say unfuckwittable, but like we were up there. We were like, it was like, when you looked at teams during that time frame, it's Miami, it's Indiana, then you have like Chicago. Like, those were the three like teams kind of in that mix around that time where you're like, yo, it's up. Like obviously Miami was at the top of the totem pole at the time, but like between Indiana and Chicago, like those were the two teams that was vying for like being able to take down the Giant. That's what it was.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like those Chicago Bulls teams. I mean, Derrick Rose is. I mean, you talk about him being your favorite player of all time. He was one of my guys, especially growing up as well too. Just being just a fan of the game of basketball. Like one of my first ever basketball shoes was freaking Derrick Rose's, and this man was like on my TV screen all the time. I'd be rewatching his highlights on YouTube and all that. Like that team was super fun, and it sucks that you guys had to run into LeBron. That's all I have to say. Like it just sucked that you guys had to constantly run into LeBron. I empathize with you, my guy. But for myself, it's easy for me to say championship year, which obviously would be an easy answer. But bro, you remember the freaking bench mob Raptors where you had freaking Fred VanVleet coming off the bench, Siakam, Norman Powell, CJ Miles, Patrick Patterson, those type of dudes coming off the bench. Like I think that 2016 Raptors team, like people would fear the Raptors bench at times because they would outscore the starters at certain points of the season. Like the Raptors would like win this like so many games by large margins just because our bench was just so much better than other people's benches, and it was a flex knowing that you have so many guys coming in the G League who like the Raptors have got as like late round guys, undrafted guys, being able to be contributing to like playoff basketball, and eventually guys like Siakam, VanVleet, Norm all hoped up for the championship eventually. But to see those guys in the early stages, and shout out to DeLon Wright too, he was a big part of that like bench mob as well. So seeing those guys develop, especially in that mid-2010s area, unfortunately, again, we couldn't take down the Cleveland Cavaliers. But those guys, paired up with DeRozan and Lowry in the starting lineup, the bench was almost just as fun as the freaking starters, man.
Yeah, and it was always cool to see them get progressively better every year. Like, they felt like a team that, at least in the regular season, you really wondered, like, yo, if they can keep this kind of momentum up, they were kind of like how we viewed the Atlanta Hawks for a while. Like, they were a team that, like, always kind of had I'm talking about, like, the Joe Johnson version of Atlanta with Josh Smith and those guys, right? Yeah. Like, where you always saw them as, like, this regular season team that, like, if they could just keep themselves together in postseason play, like, you're really looking at something special. Like, man, I'm going to be honest with you, bro. Anybody can say what they want. I don't care. I'm going to stand on morals and principles. And I mean this. And maybe this will come off as a bold take. I'm not sure. Me personally, I think that 2010 to 2015 was the greatest 5-year run of NBA basketball we've ever had. I don't care what anybody says. The Washington Wizards with John Wall and Bradley Beal, the Celtics still had Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen at the beginning portion of that 2010 time frame. Obviously, you talk about the Miami Heat becoming what they became. Steph Curry becomes the guy that he becomes at 2015 and kind of has the coming out party just for the very next year for him to really put the world on notice. I think 2010 to 2015, if it's not number one best 5-year stretches, it's easily top 3 best 5-year stretches in all of NBA history. And I think that can be said not just for like an in particular team here or there. I think that was just like peak basketball in terms of just being able to truly enjoy and admire the league, bro.
No, it's definitely up there for me. Like I would even like I would consider like kind of like my favorite stretch of basketball, like honestly between 13 to 19 in terms of the amount of star power that was in the league and the amount of like watchability it was, like even like for the talk for the casuals can't stand for. But those like years you're talking about, like I mentioned, my favorite non-Raptors championship year with Dirk Nowitzki winning it as well that year. We still had prime Kobe, you still had prime D Wade, you got the prime Heatles at the time. Like it was a damn good stretch of basketball. If you say that you're like the best like 5-year stretch, I wouldn't blame you because I like enjoyed watching basketball heavily during that time too. So yeah, I mean, if you guys want to know more about us, this is just like a kind of thing here for our 100th episode. Let us know down below if you guys have any answers to those questions as well. Jay, we've reached the end of the episode. Thank you guys for watching. Before you have to do your challenge, what do you have to tell these people before we have to going forward for the Hit Your Fetus podcast, man? 100 episodes. I want to just say, firstly, appreciate you for coming on every single episode, putting in your best, making sure that we we chug out these 100 episodes. Appreciate you guys for, even if it's a small audience, being able to like watch and listen. Just continue to support on all the social media channels as well. it feels like it's been a lot for 100 episodes, but we have a lot more coming up for you. Like we mentioned with the playoffs and stuff like that. We appreciate like all the support, and we have a lot of good stuff coming up. Jay, what do you have to say?
No, I mean, I 100% agree. I think one of the biggest things is that I told TV this before we clicked start, man. Like, I'm just so glad that we were able to do 100 episodes regardless of how big the audience was or wasn't. Like, that's something that, like, a lot of people, you look at the statistics on stuff, people say it all the time that, like, you know, like, by episode 3, episode 5, a lot of people, if they don't see what they want to see, they crap out. So a lot of, like 90% of podcasts don't make it past episode 10. You know what I mean? So to be, 10 times deeper in terms of the podcast game than 90% of people are willing to go is a special situation. And I think the funniest part about it is me and TV are still trying to figure stuff out. Like we still don't even got this down to a science enough to really give the content that we know we're capable of giving. Of course, we have these unique ideas and we keep trying our best to churn out, quality content on a day-to-day, episode-to-episode basis. But the craziest part is that, like, we truly haven't even scratched the surface on, like, getting down a real, understanding of how to grow in the podcast space and how to continue to, like, give diversified experiences talking about basketball. Like, as we continue to, like, get a better understanding of, like, the behind the scenes part of making a show great, like, it's only going to further show in terms of the on camera stuff. So I'm so glad that the on camera chemistry has been what it's been. And I'm glad that from an idea standpoint, we've just been able to maintain that creativity regardless of if we got, 3 views or 300 views or 3,000 views, right? Like, it's just been the ability to, like, not give up on the fact that, like, we love the game of basketball, bro, and it shows in every episode, even in the ones where we might be struggling through stuff that people don't know about, stuff that people won't ever really get the backstory on. We still came on the camera and said, like, yo, we're gonna talk hoops because that's the thing that gives us peace, and like that's fire, bro.
Yeah, 100%. And again, look, we have a lot more stuff to come up for you. This is by no means near the end, and then we got a lot of stuff coming, and it's going to continue to grow and grow. So if you want to be able to check out this growth, check out these just 2 guys, one from Canada, one from the freaking United States, trying to come together just to freaking watch and talk about basketball, here's the right place. And it's, again, the growth is going to continue to go, and we have lots, and hopefully looking forward to 100 episodes more going forward, man. There's a lot of stuff we got. We like you mentioned, untouched stuff we haven't even, like, reached yet. So a lot of stuff to be excited for. Jay, it's your time, man.
All right, man.
Jay, we want to do something special for the 100th episode. Jay obviously is wearing the freaking Toronto Raptors stuff in terms of for the January pick daily picks challenge. February 1, he's got the chip. Like we mentioned last year, he did the freaking popcorn. This man was freaking sweating bullets at the end of the episode. This man was freaking panicking like no other. This man had to do a freaking cinnamon challenge earlier this year. This man has gone through it. This man has gone through it this year. So, to end off the 100th episode, Jay's going to have a bite of the world's hottest chip. Jay, quick toss before you're about to take
Dude, the thing came with a glove, dog. Like,
I don't think it's supposed to touch your freaking hand surface. I think that's why.
Guys, it comes with a warning label. It tells you if you're pregnant, don't eat it. It says if you're allergic, be careful. Like, dude.
I think before the podcast, you have to stop by and freaking get milk and stuff, right? At the ready. He has it freaking ready over here. Okay, Jay, let's end this 100th episode off with a bang. The chip again. Handle with care. Wear that freaking glove, Jay. We don't want it.
Oh man, are they gonna make it? They're gonna make it hard for me to open this thing? Oh, okay. Never mind. Oh man, the smell is potent. That's when you know. God. All right.
I don't even know what type of pepper that
is. It's not even like a true glove. Oh.
So you're just gonna...
that's diabolical.
Oh no.
I'm gonna just have to kind of like. Oh my gosh! It doesn't even like slip on. It's just kind of plastic for show. It's just gloves shaped as an April Fool's.
Yeah. As he's doing that, guys, remember to like and follow all our stuff down below. I know I'm not going to be able to go through the usual outro as usual. Make sure you follow all the links. Again, lots of episodes coming forward. The NBA playoffs coming around, WNBA, all that stuff. Check out the pod. Jay, take it away, man. The freaking chip to end off the 100th episode. Let's get it. Okay, I'm nervous for you, bro. I'm like, oh, gosh. This is about to hit hard. Oh, no. This man went for it. This guy thought he was going to do like a... Don't rub your eyes, by the way. I'm telling you right now, freaking rub your eyes.
Oh! Oh!
Oh, goodness
Oh!
gracious.
Whoa! Woo!
Oh, my God.
Yo,
Bro.
TV, I'm losing breath, bro.
No, freaking... Yo, I don't know... I don't know if that... Don't drink it all at once, bro. You gotta, like... Gotta pace yourself, bro. Yo, this guy ate the freaking chip all at once. That is wild. This man said he was gonna take a first and then go for the second one, but this man did it all at once.
The milk didn't help. The milk didn't help. In the episode, TV. In the episode.
Oh my gosh, Jay. Thank you guys for watching, Jay. Oh my goodness gracious. We're just gonna keep it going a little bit. Oh, bro. Again, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for all the support. Next episode, we're gonna be back next week. Take it easy, guys. This is TV. This is Jay. We're signing out.
Peace.
Woo. Oh, bro.